Okay, let's unpack this because I want you to imagine for a second that you're just walking through a forest.
Okay, forest.
Yeah, just a normal forest.
Yeah.
And you look up expecting to see, a normal canopy of leaves against the sky, but instead you see roots,
Oh, wow.
like just massive tangled roots twisting upward into the clouds. And then when you look down, the branches, the twigs, the leaves, they're all growing downward, basically plunging into the earth below.
It's a completely surreal image. It forces a total, reevaluation of your basic orientation to reality, which
Sure.
honestly is exactly the intent of the imagery.
It really is. And
Yeah.
this totally mind-bending visual metaphor is actually the exact blueprint of our reality, according to chapter 15 of the Bhagavad Gita.
Right, which is known as Purushottam Yoga or the yoga of the supreme person.
Exactly. And this specific chapter is widely considered by a lot of scholars to be the absolute essence of the Gita. So today, we are doing a deep dive into this ancient 20-verse map.
It's dense, but it's amazing.
It's incredibly dense. Our mission today is to decode the origin of the soul, the illusion of time, and, well, the structure of the universe
Not a
itself.
small task, right?
Not at all. And for our sources today, we're pulling from some really rich material. We've got profound ashram commentaries from scholars like Swami Krishnananda and Swami Mukundananda,
Right.
plus a massive stack of Vedantic student notes and some really comprehensive academic exegeses to help us piece this all together.
And we really need all those sources because this chapter, I mean, it is a dense collection of philosophical thought. It packs an entire metaphysical universe into a very, very small space.
So let's start with that shape of reality you mentioned, the upside-down tree.
Yeah, the text calls it the Ashvatha tree. So its roots are positioned above, which in this context represents the supreme source, or, Brahman.
Okay.
And the branches extend below, which represents all the manifested life forms in the material world. So humans, animals, celestial beings, all of it.
So to be clear, above isn't indicating like a literal physical direction in the sky.
No, not at all.
It implies a logical superiority, right? Like
Yeah.
the source of material existence isn't found in the physical plane itself.
Exactly. It originates from a transcendent spiritual realm, and then that energy flows down and outward into our physical dimension.
Right. Now, there's a fascinating insight from our sources about the name of the tree itself. What's fascinating here is the Sanskrit etymology of the word Ashvatha.
Oh, yeah. This is one of my favorite parts.
Yeah.
Because it literally translates to that which will not remain the same tomorrow.
That which will not remain the same tomorrow. I love that.
It's brilliant. It is the perfect linguistic representation of samsara, the perpetual, endless flux of material life. The commentaries actually compare this existence to a river.
A river. How so?
Well, when you look at a river, it appears to be this permanent, unchanging geographic feature, right? You say, oh, there's the river.
Sure, it's always there.
But the actual water you are looking at in that moment is in constant motion. It is never the exact same water twice.
Oh, man, that reminds me so much of the wave-particle duality in modern physics.
Oh, that's a great connection.
Yeah, because the cycle of the universe itself, the wave, is eternal and unbroken. But the individual components, the particles, our bodies, our circumstances, our societies, they're constantly shifting and decaying and changing.
Right. Which basically means the material world was never, ever designed to be a permanent home for us.
Okay, so if it's not a home, what is it?
The commentaries actually describe the material world as a hospital.
A hospital.
Yeah, it's a highly specialized environment intended to cure our spiritual ailments. The ultimate goal is to heal and then leave the hospital, not to, move your furniture in and start accumulating possessions in your hospital room.
Okay, I love that analogy. But I do struggle with one part of the text here. Because the Gita is obviously a foundational Vedic text.
Right, absolutely.
Yet our sources point out a specific detail in this tree metaphor that seems almost contradictory. The text claims that the leaves of this upside-down tree represent the Vedic hymns themselves.
Yeah, that always trips people up.
Right. Why would sacred texts justify calling other sacred texts a trap? Like, why are the Vedas the leaves on the very tree we were trying to escape?
It's a really sharp, profound internal critique within the tradition itself. So the leaves represent a very specific portion of the Vedas known as the Karma Kanda.
The Karma Kanda.
Right, and these are the ritualistic hymns designed to provide worldly rewards. So if you perform a specific ritual perfectly, you are promised wealth, or a good family, success, or even like a temporary place in the celestial heavens.
Ah, okay. So they nourish the material tree by keeping us totally invested in material outcomes.
Exactly. Just as physical leaves absorb sunlight to feed a biological tree, these rituals feed material existence.
Right. They keep the sap flowing, so to speak.
They do. And look, they are helpful for maintaining social order and morality. But they can further entangle the soul if you mistake those temporary worldly rewards for the ultimate goal of transcendence.
So to use the hospital analogy.
They act like a really comfortable sedative in the hospital. You feel good, your pain is managed, but you aren't actually curing the underlying disease of material bondage.
Oh, wow. That is incredibly clear. So these Vedic rituals are the leaves that keep the tree thriving? We can't just ignore them. We have to actively sever our connection to the fruits they produce.
Right, and the texts call this wielding the strong axe of detachment, or viraja.
Vairagya. And we have to use this axe because, according to the metaphor, it's not just the main trunk we have to worry about.
No, it's much messier than that.
The metaphor expands to describe these secondary roots that grow downward from the branches, burying themselves into the earth. What are those?
Those secondary roots represent our human desires and our fruit of actions. Every single time we act out of selfish desire or do something solely to extract a specific material result, we basically grow another root.
We're anchoring ourselves.
Exactly. We anchor ourselves deeper and deeper into the illusion of the material world.
Now, I feel like detachment is a concept that often gets completely misinterpreted. People hear that and think it means abandoning your family or quitting your job to go live in a cave in isolation.
Right, the whole ascetic stereotype.
Exactly. But the sources use a specific historical example to correct this. King Janaka.
Ah, King Janaka, the perfect example.
Yeah, I mean, he lived in a grand palace, he possessed immense wealth, and he performed all of his royal administrative duties. He was fully engaged in the world.
But he's cited as the paragon of detachment.
Right, because his internal state was anchored to the self, not to his external possessions. He engaged with the world, but he didn't let the world possess him.
And to illustrate exactly why this internal detachment is so critical and why the material world is such an overwhelmingly powerful trap, the sources share this amazing narrative. It's the story of the sage Narada and the water pot.
Oh, this story is wild. Walk us through it.
So Narada is walking with Lord Vishnu, and he asks him to explain Maya, the divine illusion.
He wants to understand the trap.
Right. So Vishnu agrees, but he says, first, I'm very thirsty. Could you fetch me a pot of water from that nearby village?
Seems like a simple request.
Very simple. So Narada agrees and heads to the village. He knocks on a door, and this beautiful young woman answers. And he is instantly enchanted.
Just totally captivated.
Instantly. The water, Vishnu waiting for him, the philosophical question about Maya, it all completely vanishes from his mind. He marries the woman.
He just moves in.
He moves in. They build a home. They have children. They raise a whole family. Years and years pass. He eventually becomes a grandfather. He's deeply, deeply embedded in this community.
Whole life built.
A whole life. And then a massive catastrophic flood hits the region. Narada desperately tries to hold on to his wife and his children, but the currents are just too violent.
Oh, no.
His entire family is swept away. Narada is left weeping in the mud in absolute devastating despair. I mean, his entire life is destroyed. Suddenly, the floodwaters just vanish. The mud is gone. Narada finds himself standing exactly where he was, holding an empty water pot, with Lord Vishnu looking right at him.
Wow.
And Vishnu just calmly asks where the water is, noting that he's been waiting for, less than a minute.
A whole lifetime of profound love, family building, and devastating loss experienced in less than 60 seconds.
It's intense. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals the exact mechanism of Maya. The material world feels intensely, agonizingly real to our senses.
Right. The pain is real, the joy is intoxicating, the attachments feel so permanent.
Yes, but from the perspective of eternal consciousness, it is just a fleeting momentary reflection, and that is exactly why that act of detachment is so necessary.
Because without the ability to step back and observe the illusion, you will just keep drowning in the floodwaters of your own making, life after life.
Exactly. You're stuck in the hospital.
So once you actually wield that axe and you start to see through the illusion of time and attachment, the text shifts. It moves to what actually happens to the eternal soul, the Atman, as it travels through these
It's
realities.
the soul's journey.
And the soul is described as Sanatana, an eternal fragment of the divine with no beginning and no end. But how does it move?
The process transmigration, or, reincarnation, is explained through this incredibly delicate analogy in the text. It says, when the soul leaves a physical body, it doesn't leave empty-handed.
It takes luggage.
It takes luggage. It carries the mind and the senses with it to a new body, exactly as the air carries aromas.
As the air carries aromas. I love that phrasing. Because you can't see the wind.
Right.
And you definitely can't see the fragrance of a flower being carried on that wind, but it definitively moves from one location to another. You can smell it.
Yes. The soul carries our mental impressions and our deep-seated tendencies, like a scent, straight into the next life. It's a highly subtle journey.
And our sources point out that not everyone can see this happen.
Right. Oh, definitely not. The text notes that people who are entirely bound by material consciousness, they cannot perceive the soul departing or enjoying sense objects. All they see is the biological decay of a physical body.
Just corpse.
Exactly. But those whose eyes are trained in knowledge, possessing what the text calls the jnana chakshu, or the eye of wisdom, they can actually perceive this invisible breeze carrying the essence of the person onward.
Now, here is where the text takes a shift that, for me, fundamentally changes how we interact with the physical world.
Up to this point, we've been talking about God, the supreme source, as the root of the tree way above.
Right, it sounds very cosmic, very distant.
Super distant. But verse 14 brings the divine right down to your literal gut.
Literally.
The text identifies God as the Vaishvanara, the literal digestive fire inside all living bodies.
Yeah, the text explains that the divine mixes with the incoming and outgoing breath to actually digest the 4 types of food.
The chewed, swallowed, licked, and sucked foods. Exactly. God is not presented here as some distant architect who just, built the universe, wound up the clock, and walked away. He is the immediate, visceral energy sustaining our biological and physiological processes.
It's a stunning revelation of divine intimacy. God isn't just maintaining the planets in orbit. God is metabolizing your breakfast.
Yes. Which is exactly why Chapter 15 is so widely chanted in ashrams and Hindu households right before meals.
Well, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, it's very common because it transforms the mundane, mechanical act of eating into a spiritual sacrifice, a yajna. When you realize that the Lord is the provider of the food and the Lord is the digester of the food, you realize your own independence in the biological process is totally an illusion.
And verse 15 takes this even further. It states that God is seated in everyone's heart, and from him come memory, knowledge, and forgetfulness.
Memory and forgetfulness.
Right. So the divine regulates our cognition, giving us exactly what we need to continue our spiritual trajectory, even if what we need is to forget something. So if you're eating lunch right now while listening to this text claims you aren't digesting it alone.
You're not.
You aren't remembering your past alone.
Yeah.
It really forces you to find the profoundly extraordinary in the most basic, ordinary physiological acts of your day.
It bridges the gap between material consciousness and spiritual realization perfectly. I mean, if God is the literal fire in your stomach and the source of your memory, there is no place where the sacred does not exist.
Okay, so understanding that the divine is both the grand creator holding the cosmos together and the literal fire digesting an apple, it leads us to the ultimate philosophical payload of this text.
The big reveal.
Yes, verses 16, 17, and 18. These 3 verses are so structurally important, they are known collectively as the Trishloki Gita, or the 3-verse Gita.
Right. Our sources indicate these 3 verses basically summarize the entirety of Vedantic philosophy by categorizing all of existence.
And how do they divide it?
They divide reality into 3 distinct beings. First, there is the kshara. This translates to the perishable or the fallible.
Okay.
The perishable. This includes all bound souls in the material world, from the smallest insect all the way up to celestial beings. Their bodies and their material situations are constantly subject to change and decay.
So stepping out of those perishable branches brings us to the second category, right? The akshara.
Yes, the akshara. This is the imperishable or the infallible. It refers to the liberated souls who have transcended the cycle of birth and death. They are totally free from material bondage and reside in the spiritual realm, unchanging.
Got it. And the third?
The third category is the Purushottam, the supreme person. This is the Lord himself, who transcends both the perishable souls struggling in matter and the imperishable liberated souls. The supreme person enters the 3 worlds and sustains them all.
Now, depending on who you ask in the history of Indian philosophy, the exact relationship between these three categories, the bound soul, the liberated soul, and the supreme person, is the subject of intense debate.
Oh, incredibly intense. It's the core of Vedantic theology.
Right. And we are strictly looking at how our sources present the three classic sectarian lenses through which these verses have been interpreted by the great ancient scholars. Because each lens drastically changes the mechanism of liberation.
This raises an important question of interpretation. So let's look at the first lens. This comes from Adi Shankaracharya and the philosophy of Advaita, or absolute non-dualism.
Absolute oneness.
Right. For Shankaracharya, reality is ultimately one. There is only absolute consciousness. So he views the bound souls and the material world not as literal separate fragments of God, but as illusions created by ignorance.
And the classic analogy used here is the space inside a clay jar versus the space outside the jar.
Exactly. It looks like two entirely different spaces because of the clay walls.
Right.
But if you break the jar, you realize it was always just one continuous space. The walls were the illusion.
So in this Advaita view, liberation isn't traveling to a new realm. It's simply waking up to the fact that the individual soul and the supreme were always identical. You just had to break the jar.
Exactly. Now, the second lens is from Ramanujacharya, representing Visishtadvaita, or qualified non-dualism.
Qualified non-dualism. How does that differ?
Ramanuja argues that the soul is a real, distinct part of God. The analogy shifts here to a drop of water in relation to the ocean.
Okay.
The drop shares the exact same qualitative properties as the ocean. It is wet, it is salty, but it is not the entire ocean quantitatively.
It's just a tiny fraction.
Right. So the mechanism of liberation here is different. Even in the liberated state, the soul maintains its individual identity, so it can engage in an active, eternal relationship of service to the Supreme. You don't just dissolve into oneness.
Okay, that makes sense. And the third lens?
The third is from Madhvacharya and the philosophy of Dvaita, or strict dualism.
Strict dualism.
Yes. Madhvacharya insists on an eternal, insurmountable difference between God and the individual souls. In a strictly dualistic universe, the gap between the infinite Lord and the finite, struggling souls is so vast that Madhvacharya identifies a need for an intermediary.
Someone to bridge the gap.
Exactly. Because of this, his interpretation of the Trishloki Gita is entirely unique. He identifies the Akshara, the imperishable entity, not as the liberated souls, but specifically as the goddess Lakshmi, the divine consort.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She acts as the unchanging bridge who remains eternally dependent on the Supreme Lord, the Purushottama, while facilitating grace for the bound souls.
So we have absolute oneness, we have the qualitative drop in the ocean, and we have strict eternal difference.
Three very different philosophical frameworks.
But synthesizing these sources shows us something really powerful. Despite these incredibly complex, differing lenses, the practical application the Gita demands from you is exactly the same: active surrender.
Yes. The text calls it prapati, wholehearted, unreserved surrender to the Supreme.
And to articulate exactly why our own material strength fails and why this surrender is mechanically necessary, the sources point to the story of Gajendra, the Elephant King.
Oh, this is such a powerful narrative.
It really is. So Gajendra is this massive, incredibly powerful creature. One day, he's drinking from a lake, and a crocodile clamps down on his leg.
Right.
Now, Gajendra uses all his immense physical strength to pull free. His herd tries to help him. They fight for hours, but the crocodile is in its element, right? It's in the water.
It has the home court advantage.
Exactly. And Gajendra's stamina begins to drain. He is slowly, inevitably being dragged under the water.
So his own physical strength fails, his community fails, the material world offers absolutely no rescue.
None. And it is only in that final moment of total exhaustion and desperation, when he finally realizes his physical power is utterly useless against the environment he's trapped in, that he completely surrenders.
He calls out to the Supreme Person.
He does. He recognizes that only a transcendental force can pull him out of the jaws of death, and the Supreme Lord appears and liberates him. So surrender isn't giving up. It's recognizing where the true power to overcome material bondage actually resides.
Right, because fighting the crocodile of samsara with material strength is mathematically a losing battle. You are fighting the illusion on its own terms.
You can't win.
You can't. You require the intervention of the Purushottama to pull you out of the water.
And to emphasize just how much sheer power the Vedic tradition attributes to this specific knowledge, not just as a concept, but as a real force, our sources share one last really striking story from the Padma Purana.
Yes, the story of the general.
Right, so there was this treacherous general who plotted to assassinate his own king, but before he could execute his treason, he died of a sudden illness.
And because of his terrible karma and this ruthless lust for power, the general's soul was reborn into the body of a horse.
But as karmic fate would have it, a merchant eventually sold this exact horse to the very king the general had previously tried to murder.
The irony is pretty thick.
Very thick. So one day, the king is out riding this horse near a stream, and he spots a palm leaf washed up on the bank. Written on this leaf is a single verse from chapter 15 of the Bhagavad Gita.
Just one verse.
Just one. The king picks it up and simply reads the verse aloud. And just the sound vibration of those words, the pure spiritual potency of the Purushottam yoga, hits the horse.
And the horse instantly drops dead.
Drops dead. Its karmic bonds completely shattered. The general's soul was purified on the spot and liberated, taken directly back to the spiritual world, completely bypassing lifetimes of required healing in the material hospital.
And the king, witnessing this sudden miracle, realizes the immense gravity of the text he holds in his hands. He begins reciting the chapter daily and eventually attains liberation himself.
It's a powerful testament to the tradition's belief that this knowledge isn't just, theoretical philosophy meant for debate. It is an active, purifying force that alters reality.
Well, it really is.
So we've navigated the inverted tree of existence, wielded the axe of detachment against the illusion of time, traced the soul carrying its senses like a breeze carrying perfume, discovered the divine fire digesting our food, and met the Supreme Person above it all.
It's a massive journey in just 20 verses.
It really is. And the text told us earlier that the Supreme Person is the source of our memory and our forgetfulness. We spend so much of our daily lives desperately trying to hold on to our memories, constantly replaying our past pains, our grievances, and our attachments.
We view forgetfulness as a failing.
We really do. But if the divine regulates our cognition to give us exactly what we need, what if your ability to forget your past pain is actually a divine intervention designed to help you grow?
That's a beautiful way to reframe it.
Right. So I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over on your own. You now know that the world is an inverted tree, its roots drawing from an unseen supreme reality. The next time you walk past a pond and look at the reflection of a tree in the water swaying, temporary and upside down, ask yourself, if you reach in to grab those leaves, your hands will only catch water. What situation, anxiety, or desire in your daily life are you desperately trying to hold on to right now, not realizing it is just a ripple on the surface of something much deeper?